I think a lot of Americans know about the Monuments Men, but they only know them in Europe. And it was a huge operation. It was mostly about rescuing things that the Nazis had taken. It was a very different operation in Japan. There it was much more about finding out what has survived and encouraging the democratization of objects for people to be able to see them.
Through my art practices, I had been really looking at the objects that resonate the Japanese identity, and then how, especially in the American economy or American society, that is looked at in a way, mystified sometimes, or popularized, or misunderstood. But 7 or 8 years ago, I started to pay attention to post-war period, post-World War II, where the cultural shift happened drastically because of the war.
When I first came to the exhibition, the first thing I saw when I came in was this mushroom cloud. And then there was an American housewife, with some sort of cake that was shaped like a mushroom cloud. And that was just a really just jarring and thought-provoking group, sort of polarizing images of the sort of romanticization of the atomic bombs on the American side, and then the devastation that they wrought in Japan. And I thought that was a really just striking way to sort of introduce this idea of upside down, that perceptions of Americans coming into the show is very upside down in what the atomic bombs did in Japan, why they were used, and what the effect was of the occupation.
I looked into Cleveland Museum's collection of Japanese art, and then found that the former director of the Cleveland Museum of Art, Shaman Lee, was a monuments man in Japan, really immediately after World War II. When the recovery and then democratization, so-called democratization of Japan was happening in the post-war period, a lot of things are flipped, and a lot of things became upside down in a way, and then we have to rebuild from that.
Some art historians, not all, but myself and many here in Cleveland, are very object-based. So instead of thinking about some theory or some concept, or some French philosopher from the 19th century who might have something to say on pre-modern Japanese art, we're thinking about the object and how we build a story around that object and what questions we want to ask. And with your process, you had this made in occupied Japan thing, and where does this come from? Why does this exist? Why does it say made in occupied Japan? And I really see what you have developed in the whole project, going to video clips, historical material, using connections to an American museum in Cleveland that has a strong traditional Japanese art collection. And then using all of that to build a story about how we got to this made in occupied Japan thing, and then what you want to do about it. So particularly the overglazing of some of these figures with traditional Japanese glazes, and the use of the scroll to show the video and the tokonoma, I think really resonates with traditional Japanese forms, but really challenges people to think about, well, this is what you might think about with Japanese art if you've been to a museum, but these are Japanese objects too.
I wanted to acknowledge the democratization of art object, or using that sort of democracy to build the esteem of Japanese people, linking to the heritage and the importance of the cultural property, the asset we had, centuries of tradition.